UFC rankings are out, and no Nunez is no problem. Robert Whittaker and Yoel Romero steal the show. Let's talk about it.
He's Forrest Griffin. I'm Matt Parrino. This is the rankings report.
It is.
Robert Whittaker, what a performance. Takes out Yoel Romero in a great 5-round main event. I mean, Robert Whittaker has been one of the hottest guys in the UFC. He carried that over into this fight. Started off a little bit slow, but really finished strong in the final rounds. What did you think of the performance?
I thought it was amazing. I underrated him. I saw him as a 70-pounder that wasn't dominant, moving up, kind of under the radar, more of a dark horse, but he wins big fights.
I mean, talk about big fights. Jacare Souza and now Yoel Romero, the two guys in this division that for a long time, it felt like nobody really wanted to fight.
Nobody wants to fight these gargoyles. Yeah.
Exactly. And something that Romero said in his post-fight press conference, you took a little issue with, maybe faulty game plan.
I was a little confused. Romero in his corner decided to kind of cruise in the fourth, let Whittaker steal the fourth to finish strong in the fifth. I mean, obviously hindsight's 20/20, but my thought is always, if you know you've won 2 out of the 3 rounds, you win that third round, and then you cruise the fifth, which fans don't like to see when you lose the 5th round and then win the decision. However, I think it would have been a little safer, you know?
So for Whittaker, we see continuing development of his overall game. Some of the best takedown defense I've ever seen. You could probably speak more to that than me. But striking-wise, his strong suit, he struggled out of the gates. In the first round, he only landed about 28% of his total strikes, but in the 4th and 5th, when it mattered, landed 47 and 45%. Very impressive.
So that lets you know how scary Romero is. A guy like Romero reminds me a bit of Overeem in the heavyweight division. It's a hard guy to fight because you don't get a chance to make more than one mistake, because you make one mistake, the capitalized fight's over. You wake up, you don't know where you are. Yeah, ain't my way, man. Why'd I pee my pants?
I can see you doing that.
Yeah. Let's
get you a diaper. So Robert Whittaker, we know what's next for him. He moves up to number 1 in the rankings. Yoel Romero down to 2. Whittaker has a date later this year against champion Michael Bisping in a unification title fight.
So I'm glad you bring that up. A lot of people on the Twitter, as it were, took issue to the multiple belts. And they said, oh, that's what destroyed boxing, multiple. No, boxing had multiple federations, so you actually never had to unify the belts in boxing. You could keep doing your own thing. In UFC, I like multiple belts. I think the belt should never be inactive. So when the belt is shelved for a little bit, like Bisping had a knee injury, so the belt was shelved, we make a new belt. And as long as the belts always unify, and they always have, it's happened a lot at the heavyweight division, I'm happy with it. I like it. I think it makes for more interesting fights. I do not have a problem with interim belts.
So Whittaker makes his debut in the pound-for-pound rankings at number 13. He has now won 8 in a row overall, 7 in a row in the middleweight division. Moving right along, maybe the star of the weekend, Justin Gaethje made his debut in the 155-pound division against Michael Johnson. What a spectacular performance. People are hailing this as the fight of the year in July.
Justin Gaethje reminds me of a young Frankie Edgar. Amazing. He was clipped, he was hurt, he came back. You know, to be a bit hurt and then throw a jump scissor knee that actually lands, and I think that's what actually brought Michael Johnson down to the fence, was that knee. I was impressed, man, you know, and all week this kid, he has that it factor. He's talking to people, he's saying, you know, I'm gonna whoop his ass, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna beat him, I'm gonna knock him out, or I'm gonna get knocked out. It could happen. And it's just such a casual, cool way he said it. Oh, okay, hey, this is a likable kid. And from what I hear, I'd only ever seen fights and highlights of this week. He told me I was in for a treat. I told him I'd never seen him fight before. He said, well, you know, you're in for a treat, and he was right.
So Gaethje makes his appearance in the rankings at number 6. Michael Johnson, I think it's a little crazy, moves all the way down to number 9. The guy went out there, he rocked Gaethje, I think it was 4 different occasions. It was just a war. Gaethje just landed the last punch, not taken away from his performance, but I think Michael Johnson showed why he's one of the best in the world. But for Gaethje...
I like that we give Michael Johnson some respect. It was a great fight on his part, too. You know, that 55-pound belt is tied up, but we need a new one. We need a new one between Khabib and Ferguson, which in my opinion are the 2 best 55ers out there, not named Conor McGregor. And then I think, you know, where's Gaethje ranked again? 5?
Number 6.
6. That's pretty high. So, you know,
Right in the mix.
Yeah.
Speaking of that 155-pound belt, a guy that used to wear it, Anthony Showtime Pettis,
Yes.
returned to 155 pounds after a brief stint at 145, looked amazing, took out Jim Miller, re-debuts at number 13 in the rankings. What'd you think of his return?
He looked great on the feet. He's quicker and longer than Miller. We expected that. He actually held top position better than Jim Miller, who's a lifelong wrestler from Jersey. He out-wrestled Miller. I think the biggest difference is you saw that when Jim was on top, he didn't land shots on Pettis. He was just trying to hold him there, and Pettis eventually got up. But when Pettis was on top, he landed big shots, which surprised me.
In the co-main event, it was a heavyweight tilt between Alistair Overeem, Fabrizio Verdum, and Overeem reigned supreme. He took the majority decision. A little bit of a slow start in the first 2 rounds. Overeem,
Well, slow start in the first. The second, Reem actually picked it up again, landed some good shots. Again, Overeem fights at Overeem's pace. He does what he wants to do, and you're not gonna make him fight quicker. It's not just his power; it's his reaction time. We saw time and time again. If it catches you sleeping, catches you flat-footed, he can land a big left hand from anywhere, a big right hand. He fights very smart. He's had 1 million fights. I think that's actually 1 million. And he's got a very high fight IQ, which you would assume would be true with the guy.
So in terms of the rankings, Overeem comes in at number 1, passing Cain Velasquez and Verdum, who's now in the 2 spot. In other rankings movement, Rob Font, who got bumped up to the main card.
Looked really good.
He shows up at number 13 in his division. A lot of excitement, a lot of movement. That's what we like here. So before we get out of here, let's hit one more thing. UFC Fight Pass, the place to be every Tuesday night. Dana White's Tuesday Night Contender Series.
That's right. I'm not just pointing at another man's breast for no reason.
Begins
I'm
today?
pointing because Contender Series is tonight. By the time you see it, you'll have already watched it on UFC Fight Pass. But if you did miss it, UFC Fight Pass, I'll watch it live, but you can watch it. Did I mention UFC Fight Pass?
Yeah, and you can watch it live. They can watch it live too, but tomorrow it won't be live.
It won't be live.
But that's the great thing about Fight Pass. You can go back and watch it after the fact.
Right.
Nice job at Metro Desk, by the way. I like the no shoes.
So good, so good.
Yeah. I felt bad for your co-host.
I know.